She stood frozen in front of the grand ballroom doors, her heart hammering against her ribs. The low hum of laughter and the clinking of champagne glasses seeped through the cracks, each sound slicing through her nerves like glass. Lena Clark adjusted the strap of her pale blue dress, borrowed, a size too loose, and held together with safety pins hidden beneath the fabric. Her hands trembled as she tried to steady her breath. Tonight was supposed to be the night she showed them all that she was fine. That she had moved on. That the laughter, the betrayal, and the whispers behind her back hadn't broken her. But now, standing here alone, she felt foolish for even trying. Her supposed date, her friend Ethan, had cancelled barely an hour ago, citing a work emergency. She had smiled at the text like it didn't matter, but when she put her phone down, her hands had started to shake uncontrollably. Ethan was her buffer, her shield against the sea of judgment waiting inside that ballroom. Without him, she was just Lena Clark, the florist girl who wasn't good enough. And inside those glittering doors were the people who made sure she never forgot it. Her ex-boyfriend, Ryan Hale, charming, wealthy, and cruel beneath the perfect smile, was getting engaged tonight. To Olivia, her former best friend. They had once been inseparable. Lena had thought she'd spend forever with Ryan, building a quiet life together. But he'd wanted more. More money, more status, more power. When Lena told him she wanted to open her own flower shop, he laughed. When she said she didn't need his money, he told her she'd always be small town small. She'd left him with nothing but dignity and a shattered heart. And now, he wanted her to see how well he was doing without her. The invitation had arrived at her shop weeks ago, slipped into a bouquet order. It wasn't addressed to her directly, but she knew the handwriting. Olivia's perfect cursive, a cruel taunt hidden behind elegant calligraphy. Join us for a night to remember. She should have thrown it away. But instead, she'd spent weeks preparing. Borrowing a dress, doing her own makeup, practicing how she'd smile when they saw her, how she'd look like she wasn't hurting. And now, she couldn't even walk in. Get it together, Lena, she whispered under her breath. Just go in, say congratulations, and leave. But her body refused to move. That's when a deep voice broke through her panic. Are you all right, miss? She turned and found herself staring up at a man who looked like he'd stepped out of another world. He stood tall, broad-shouldered, and impossibly composed, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than her entire shop's rent. His dark hair was neatly swept back, and his eyes, sharp, gray, and unreadable, studied her with quiet concern. For a moment, Lena couldn't find her voice. No. Yes. I mean, she looked down, mortified. It's complicated. He smiled faintly, a trace of amusement flickering across his face. Maybe I can help. Her mind spun. He was a stranger. But desperation has a way of silencing logic. Actually, she began slowly, her heart pounding harder with every word. You can. It's going to sound crazy, but, can you pretend to be my date for tonight? His brows lifted slightly. He didn't laugh, didn't frown, just looked at her as if trying to understand. Pretend to be your date. He repeated, his tone even. She nodded, biting her lip. Please. Just for tonight. I know it's strange, but I can't go in there alone. My ex and his fiancé. She stopped herself before she spilled too much. Let's just say, I need a little help saving face. For a long second, he said nothing. Lena's stomach twisted. He's going to walk away. He's going to think I'm insane. Then, to her surprise, he gave a small, almost mischievous smile. Sure. Why not? Her eyes widened. Wait. Really? He extended his hand. Alexander Grant. She hesitated before shaking it. Lena Clark. Nice to meet you, Miss Clark, he said smoothly. Shall we? And before she could even catch her breath, he offered his arm like a gentleman from another era, and led her through the massive ballroom doors. The music swelled, conversations paused. Dozens of eyes turned toward them. Lena's stomach dropped as whispers began to ripple through the crowd. Who's she? Isn't that Ryan's ex? And who's he? Lena tried to keep her chin high, clutching Alexander's arm like it was the only thing keeping her from drowning. Relax, he murmured, his voice low enough for only her to hear. They're already wondering who you are. She let out a shaky laugh. That's not necessarily a good thing. He smiled. Tonight, it is. When Ryan spotted her from across the room, his confident smirk faltered for the briefest moment. Olivia, in her shimmering silver gown, whispered something into his ear, but her eyes stayed fixed on Lena, and on the man beside her. Lena, Ryan greeted when they approached. I didn't expect you'd actually come. His tone dripped with false sweetness. And, you brought someone. Alexander reached out his hand calmly. Alexander Grant. Lena's date. Ryan froze. Grant. As in, Grant Enterprises. Olivia blinked, her face momentarily losing its poise. The Alexander Grant. Lena looked up at Alex, startled. Grant Enterprises. That Grant. He gave a small shrug, his tone polite but cool. Yes. But tonight, I'm just here with Lena. The way he said it, possessive, warm, effortless, made her chest tighten. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like the small-town girl who never fit in. She felt seen. As the evening went on, Alexander played his part with ease. He held her hand when people passed, introduced her with quiet pride, and even leaned down to whisper jokes that made her laugh despite the tension. You're doing this too well, she teased softly during dinner. He chuckled. Maybe I'm not pretending anymore. Her breath caught, but before she could respond, someone called his name. Cameras flashed. A reporter whispered, Alexander Grant with mystery woman, who is she? Panic gripped her chest. She wasn't used to attention, especially not this kind. Don't worry, Alex said, his voice calm and steady. I'll take care of it. And somehow, she believed him. As the night unfolded, Ryan tried to maintain his composure, but jealousy flickered in his eyes. When Lena and Alexander took the dance floor, his knuckles whitened around his champagne glass. You're sure you want to dance? Lena asked nervously. Of course, Alexander replied, guiding her hand gently into his. Let them see what they lost. Her cheeks flushed, and when the music began, he spun her effortlessly across the floor. The world blurred into golden lights and whispers, but she could only focus on his steady gaze. You know, he murmured, you're not nearly as nervous as when we met an hour ago. She smiled shyly. That's because you make it easy to forget I'm supposed to be nervous. He grinned. Then I'm doing my job. When the final note faded, applause filled the room. For the first time all night, Lena didn't feel small. She felt powerful, beautiful, even. Afterward, Alexander escorted her outside into the cool night air. The moonlight bathed the street in silver, and she turned to him, words tangled on her tongue. Thank you, she said softly. You didn't have to do all that. He looked at her, a warmth in his gray eyes that hadn't been there before. Maybe I wanted to. His driver pulled up, and he stepped back, offering her a gentle nod. Good night, Lena Clark. I hope this isn't the last time we meet. She stood there, breathless, watching as his car disappeared into the night. Her heart still raced, but not from nerves anymore. She didn't know it yet, but that one impulsive plea, can you pretend to be my date, had changed everything. By the next morning, her quiet, simple life would no longer be the same. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the window of Lena's tiny apartment, casting golden streaks across the cluttered table filled with petals, ribbons, and half-written orders. She was half convinced last night had been a dream, a beautifully impossible dream spun out of desperation and nerves. But then her phone buzzed. Good morning, Miss Clark. I hope you got home safely. A.G. Her heart skipped a beat. A.G. Alexander Grant. She stared at the message for a long moment, unable to stop the smile tugging at her lips. It wasn't just a dream. He'd really been there, by her side, dancing with her, defending her, making her feel like she belonged in a room full of people who once laughed at her. Lena typed a quick reply. Thank you again. For everything. She hesitated before adding, you saved me last night. A moment later, the reply came. Then allow me to keep saving you, one coffee at a time. Meet me today. Her pulse quickened. She should have said no. He was a stranger, a billionaire, and she was just a florist who barely made rent on time. Their worlds didn't even touch. But something about him, his calmness, his quiet strength, pulled her in. And so, a few hours later, she found herself standing outside a corner cafe, heart thudding as a familiar black car pulled up. He stepped out, immaculate as always, but there was something softer in his expression now. "You came," he said, a hint of relief in his voice. "You asked," she replied, trying to sound casual. They talked over coffee for hours. What started as small talk, work, hobbies, random jokes, slowly deepened into something more vulnerable. He spoke of growing up in a world of expectations, of how success felt empty when every smile around him was bought. She told him about her flower shop, Petal and Bloom, and how she'd built it from scratch after leaving Ryan. "You left everything behind for that?" he asked, genuinely curious. She nodded. "It was all I had left that was mine. Flowers don't lie. They wilt, they bloom, they die, but they're honest." He smiled faintly, watching her with quiet admiration. "You're braver than most people I know." From that day on, their paths intertwined in ways Lena couldn't have imagined. 1 week later, a sleek company representative appeared at her shop, handing her an official contract. "Mr. Grant would like to have Petal and Bloom handle all floral arrangements for Grant Enterprises," the man said. "Daily orders, full payment in advance." Lena's jaw dropped. "You mean every day?" "Yes, ma'am." Mr. Grant insisted. Her little shop transformed overnight. She hired 2 helpers, restocked inventory, and for the first time, didn't have to count coins at the end of the week. At first, she thought it was just his way of being kind. But then, he started stopping by personally, under the pretense of checking on the arrangements. He'd bring coffee, tease her about the music she played, or help carry boxes despite her protests. He was the CEO of one of the largest corporations in the city, yet when he stepped into her shop, he was just Alex. One afternoon, as she arranged a bouquet of lilies, he watched her silently before asking, "Do you always look this peaceful when you work?" She smiled without looking up. "Do you always watch people this closely?" "Only the ones who make the world look softer," he said quietly. Her hand froze over the flowers. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, a warmth that made her chest ache. Days turned into weeks, and soon, they weren't just sharing coffee. They were sharing sunsets, stories, and silences that didn't feel awkward. But just when Lena started to believe this strange, unexpected connection could be something real, the past came knocking. Ryan showed up at her shop one Friday afternoon. The bell chimed as he stepped in, wearing the same smug grin she once mistook for charm. "Lena," he said smoothly, his eyes scanning the room. "Nice place. I've been hearing your name a lot lately. Looks like you've upgraded your circle." She stiffened. "What do you want, Ryan?" He smirked. "To see for myself if the rumors were true. The billionaire and the florist. Quite the fairy tale. Though we both know how you love pretending." Before she could respond, the door opened again. Alex walked in, his presence instantly filling the space. His eyes flicked from Lena to Ryan, his jaw tightening. "Is this the man you used to date?" he asked calmly. "Yes," Lena said quietly. Ryan laughed. "Well, now that introductions are over, maybe I should warn you, Grant. She's a sweet act, but she's not built for your world. She'll embarrass you before long." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Alex took a step forward, his voice steady but cold. "You're wrong," he said. "She doesn't need to fit into my world. I'd rather fit into hers." Ryan's smirk faltered for the first time. "You'll regret it." Alex didn't flinch. "The only thing I'd regret is letting someone like you make her doubt herself again." Ryan's face twisted before he turned and left, the bell above the door ringing sharply as it closed behind him. Lena stood frozen, emotions choking her throat. "You didn't have to defend me," she said finally. "I wanted to," Alex replied softly. "You think I helped you that night, Lena, but you helped me too." Her brows furrowed. "Helped you how?" "You reminded me what it feels like to be human again," he said, his voice low and sincere. "For so long, I've been surrounded by people who wanted my name, not me. But you never asked for anything." Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know I needed to hear that." He stepped closer, his hand brushing a stray tear from her cheek. "You deserve more than what life has given you, Lena Clark. Let me be part of that more." And from that day, they became inseparable. But not everyone approved. Soon, photos of them together began circulating online. Billionaire CEO dating small-town florist. Lover scandal. Reporters hounded her shop. Some clients canceled their orders. The whispers returned, crueler than before. Maybe she's using him. She'll ruin his reputation. She's just a pretty distraction. One evening, Lena sat on her shop floor surrounded by fallen petals, exhaustion and fear heavy on her chest. When Alex arrived, she tried to smile, but the tears came anyway. "I can't let you lose everything because of me," she said. "Your investors, your image, it's all at risk." He knelt in front of her, taking her trembling hands in his. "Lena, I don't care about any of that. I care about you. But you'll regret it someday," she whispered. He shook his head. "No. The only thing I'd regret is letting go of something real because I was too scared to fight for it." His voice broke through her doubt, steady and sure. And for the first time in years, Lena believed that maybe, just maybe, she was worth fighting for. Weeks later, the city's elite gathered once again for a charity gala, held in the same ballroom where their story began. Lena hesitated at the entrance, a mirror of the night she'd begged a stranger for help. But this time, she wasn't alone. Alex stood beside her, his hand firm around hers. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded, her smile trembling but brave. "Ready." When they entered, all eyes turned again, but the whispers no longer hurt. They didn't define her anymore. Midway through the event, Alex stepped onto the stage, drawing the room's attention. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. "Last time I was in this room," he began. His gaze sweeping the crowd before finding Lena's, "I was pretending to be someone's date. Tonight, I'm not pretending anymore." The crowd stirred with curiosity. Lena's heart pounded as he reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. He turned toward her. "Lena Clark, you walked into my life and reminded me what matters most. You taught me that love doesn't need titles or power, it just needs truth. You asked me once to pretend for one night, but that night changed my life." Tears blurred her vision as the room fell silent. He knelt, voice thick with emotion. "So now, I'm asking you, will you stop pretending, and be mine for real?" The crowd gasped. Lena covered her mouth, tears streaming freely now. "Yes," she whispered through trembling lips. "Always." The applause that followed was thunderous, but for Lena, the world faded away. All she saw was him, his eyes full of love, his smile soft and real. And as he kissed her under the golden light of the ballroom, she realized the truth. That one night of desperation, the night she begged a stranger to pretend, had led her not to humiliation, but to everything she'd ever hoped for. Because sometimes, pretending for a moment, leads you to something real forever.